Hi everybody, this is Chris and Chad from Dojo Built, and today we're going to be talking about the AllSteady 7 built by
TurboAce.
Yeah, that's right, TurboAce.
So the AllSteady 7 is a 3-axis gimbal. When we were out looking for 3-axis gimbals, we saw a lot of videos, some on the Movi, some on the Defy. There's a bunch of other ones out there, but what we didn't really see is a lot of information on the TurboAce, the AllSteady 7.
And to be fair, we were a part of the Kickstarter, and we got one of the very first releases of the AllSteady 7. So hopefully for you future consumers, you can use this video as a baseline for comparison.
Yeah, what we really wanted to do in this video too is just kind of take all that information on the TurboAce and put it into one place. So we want to show you, what it's like to use. Is it heavy? How's balancing? How's dealing with customer support of such a new product? How is maintaining this thing? There's a lot of intricacies that go into a purchase that's this big. Yeah. So we kind of wanted to help you guys out. Maybe you can learn from some of our mistakes and some of the things that we've learned while using this thing.
The purpose of the gimbal is to take that jitter out of your handheld shots. And to do that, we mount the camera inside of this carriage, and through the use of 3 motors and a control board, it keeps the camera perfectly level no matter what we're doing with the handles. As we're moving through, there's also a joystick on one of the handles where I'm moving and I can pan and tilt the camera to get the right angle. So another option that we're working on is to add a receiver to the gimbal, so that as I'm moving the gimbal through space, Chad can be sitting on the side of the set with a remote control and an LCD monitor, and he can actually control the camera's pan and tilt. Sounds cool.
Alright, so now that Chris got this camera all balanced up on the gimbal, there's a few things I do want to point out. So first off, this gimbal's run off a battery, right? So that battery sits right up on top here. So it runs all the way back along this tube, so it's a big long battery. It's nice for a few reasons. One, it keeps it completely out of the way, right? It keeps everything tucked away, it keeps all the cords tucked away, and it's just, you forget it's there. The bad thing is it's a proprietary battery, and they're relatively pricey. I think they're like 200 bucks a pop. So you have to go through TurboAce's batteries to use it. And if you're going to be out in the field a lot, you want 2 or 3 batteries. So make sure you work that into the budget if this is one you're considering. All right, so another thing I want to point out is that for you guys that are coming from glide cams like your HD 2000 or 4000, like I was, I thought as soon as you got this thing balanced up on this gimbal, you took it off and you were ready to go. Well, one thing you got to realize is that this gimbal runs off motors, right? So on the back here, you've got this control panel and an on switch, and that's your battery. But what that's doing is, as soon as you kick this thing on, it engages all those motors, and they're constantly working to keep your frame steady. So when your frame, when you're holding the frame and you're moving it all around, those motors are what's keeping your camera dead steady. And it's also what's allowing you to control the camera with that joystick like Chris was talking about. All right, so the next thing is, once you've got this camera all balanced up, there's a USB plug coming off of the control panel back here. You need to plug that into your computer, and there's a software basically that's calibrating your camera. So luckily from TurboAce, they sent us a bunch of presets. You tell them what camera you're going to be using on the gimbal, and they kind of set it up for you and send you all the presets they're using. That makes it really easy. Luckily Chris was around. He loves that stuff. He figured it all out, but it is kind of a complicated software. So, we'll go over an actual balancing tutorial in another video, but for now, just keep that in mind. Okay, so now that we've got all that figured out, we're just gonna go ahead and kick this gimbal on. So I'm gonna flip this switch, and you can see that battery indicator right there. And in a second here, you'll hear those motors start to engage, and it's gonna bring this camera up to level, and it's gonna keep it there, unless I tell it to do anything different. So, okay, now that came up, I'm going to use this. There's a joystick on the back here like Chris was showing you. I'm going to flip this all the way back around. Perfect. Okay, so now that we're back facing forward here, I'm going to show you just how this thing kind of works. Remember, we've got these motors here that are stabilizing this camera. So if I take this off of the frame, All right, so right now on the default setting, it's going to kind of follow me. So if I turn right, camera's going to follow with me. If I come back left, it's going to follow with me, up, down, and it's awesome because it keeps everything, you know, really steady. But you've also got this menu button right here, so you can cycle through different presets. So if I just hit it once, it's going to go to basically keeping that camera dead steady. So now, if I move this frame, it's keeping that camera completely steady. So you can imagine if Chris is moving through space and I'm over there on a remote controller with a monitor, I can keep everything I want in the camera frame while he can just worry about moving this guy back and forth. And then, you know, there's a bunch of different presets you can do as well. You can preset how fast. So if I go to like 3, so I'm gonna hit this 3 times. And these are all presets you're making inside that software I was talking about. Now, if I turn right, it's going to follow me again. And you can set how quick you want it to follow or how slow you want it to follow. So there are a bunch of different presets, and it really makes this thing awesome for anything you want to do. You can do it as a one-man band. You can do it as a two-man thing. You can have, you know, all sorts of stuff, and it gives you just so much flexibility. So now that you know how the thing works, let's jump into some pros and cons of actually using this thing out in the real world. Whew, this thing's heavy. First up on the pros, so the thing does what it claims it's going to do. I mean, it gives you a bunch of really steady, nice-looking cinematic shots.
It really does.
So it folds down. One thing that's cool about it is, you know, it folds almost flat, and you can get it, you know, we just take some Velcro, wrap it up, and we can travel with it really easily. Pretty simple to balance. I mean, it took us not too long to at least balance the camera on the frame, and even better, it holds its balance really well. So,
and once you get the hang of balancing it, I don't think it's a big deal to switch from one camera to the other. However, jumping over to the cons, I mean, if you are going to be jumping to one camera or the other, the setup for the profiles, it's going to take you some time.
Yeah, the software stuff.
The software.
Yeah, that's where the time's going to come in.
Oh, and that's another good point. I mean, if you have 2 different cameras that you're going to be using, you're going to have a laptop to set up the gimbal between cameras. You can't have camera A and camera B.
You can't change it on the fly.
You can't change it on the fly.
Yeah. The battery it's got a really long battery life. We've never ran into issues with battery life before. The downside is that they're proprietary, like I was saying before, and they do cost a bit, but once you've got them, I mean, you've got them. One of the really big reasons we went with this gimbal over everything else is its weight capacity. So it's, you know, it's got the big carbon fiber tubes, it's got the big motors, it can handle up to, I think, 12 pounds, it says. Mm-hmm. Which is a big deal for us. I mean, that Blackmagic camera body's 4 pounds. You know, you throw in a 2-pound lens, and on these littler gimbals, you're in trouble. We should probably go into cons at that point and say the weight is kind of a con. You know, you pick it up at first, and it's not too big of a deal, but you're running a long take, you know, a 2-minute take or something like that. You're gonna feel it.
That's just something that you're gonna have to deal with. I mean, if you want to play with the gimbal, you're gonna have to get used to the weight. I mean, relatively speaking, it doesn't weigh a lot, but.
So we should also work into price a gym membership fee.
Oh, definitely.
What else we got here? So back to pros. Open source, right?
It's got an open source community. It's got the Alex Moss board on it. You've got this relatively large community that you can bounce off. And honestly, I think you're going to need it. The customer service at Turbo Ace, I mean, everybody I've talked to, they've been really exceptional. But the turnaround times they're bad. I mean, yeah. We'll wait a week to get an answer on something, and that's really unacceptable. So a lot of times I'll just hit the internet and YouTube and try to find the answers.
The remote operator was a really big deal. Chris is big and buff, and he can run around with the big heavy frame all day, and I can just sit in my little chair and control it on a remote control and take all the credit for the shot. So the software, I only saw it briefly, but it's not a software you can just jump in and just kind of play around with and figure out. You're going to need some instruction along the way.
Yeah. There's a steep learning curve to that as well as just the operation of it.
Yeah, it's a steep learning curve. As with anything, I mean, you know, if you throw your camera on a glide cam, it's not like you're going to go out and get beautiful sweeping shots the first day. Same thing with this. You know, you're gonna have that learning curve to figure out how it works.
And really, to live up to the potential of the gimbal, you're going to have an external LCD too. So you should just budget that in from the beginning.
Yeah, we didn't, and we're regretting it. I mean, if you're doing a low shot, it's impossible to see what you're getting. It's kind of just like firing from the hip when you have a scoped rifle. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
No. Other than that, I mean, I think it's really worth that steep learning curve, and
Oh, definitely. When you go out with the shoot in this thing, and you know you're having all these issues with it, but when you get it back onto the computer and you're looking at the footage, it's worth it, man.
it's clean. You get stuff that,
Yeah. Really what it came down to, why we purchased this gimbal, I think, is because A, the weight capacity was a huge deal, the fact that it held 12 pounds. The price, I think we paid just under $7,000. We got 2 extra batteries, the stand and the gimbal itself, and the other gimbals that were in that weight capacity range were double that.
just how neatly it's all tucked together as well. I mean, pretty much everything else out there that we saw was, you got wires being strung all over the place. It wasn't clean, and they did a really good job with the design as far as keeping everything clean.
I'm happy with it. I think we made a good decision with this gimbal, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to be using for a long time.
Agreed.
Hopefully this video helped you out. If you have any other questions about gimbals, definitely feel free to leave a comment below or send us over an email. I can be reached at chat@dojobuilt.com. Same with Chris. And we'd be happy to help you out with any other questions you got going on. If you did find this video useful, please subscribe, like, share the video, all that good stuff. If you want to know more about our company, check out www.dojobuilt.com and stick around for the next videos. Thanks for watching.